translation reads, Brahma, it is I, the personality of Godhead, who was existing before the creation, when there was nothing but myself, nor was there the material nature, the cause of this creation. That which you see now is also I, the personality of Godhead, and after annihilation, what remains will also be I, the personality of Godhead. Let us repeat this translation together. Brahma, it is I.
Brahma, it is I.
The personality of Godhead. Who was existing. Before the creation.
Before the creation.
When there was nothing but myself.
When there was nothing but myself.
Nor was there the material nature.
Nor was there the material nature.
The cause of this creation.
The cause of this creation.
That which you see now.
That which you see now.
Is also I.
Is also I.
Personality of Godhead.
Personality of Godhead.
And after annihilation.
And after annihilation.
What remains.
What remains.
Will also be I.
Will also be I.
Personality of Godhead.
Personality of Godhead.
So, yes, concluding in the purport, Srila Prabhupada writes, in various places in Srimad Bhagavatam and in other revealed scriptures, the existence of the personality of Godhead is mentioned. For example, in Srimad Bhagavatam 2:8-10, Maharaj Parikshit asks, Sa chapi yatra purusho vishva stiti urbhavapyaya muktvatta mayam mayesha shekti sarva guhashaya. How does the personality of Godhead, the cause of creation, maintenance of annihilation, who is always freed from the influence of the illusory energy and is the controller of the same, lie in everyone's heart? Similar also is the question of viduras. Tatvanam bhagavam stesham kotitha pratisankrama tatremam ka upashiram ka ursvid urusherati. This is from Srimad Bhagavatam 3:7-37. Suhotra Swami explains this in his notes. During the annihilation of the creation, who serves the Lord lying on the shesh, etc. This means that the transcendental Lord, with all his name, fame, quality, and paraphernalia, exists eternally. No, actually, we read this. So the marker's not in the right place. We read this up in Urdu. Next page. The impersonalist adduces no activity in the Supreme, but in this discussion between Brahma and the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the Lord is said to have activities also, as he has his form and quality. The activities of Brahma and other demigods during the maintenance of the creation are to be understood as the activities of the Lord. The king or the head executive of a state may not be seen in the government offices, for he may be engaged in royal comforts. Actually, I read this too, but I'll continue. It should be understood that everything is being done under his direction, and everything is at his command. The personality of God is never formless. In the material world, he may not be visible in his personal form to the less intelligent class of men, and therefore he may sometimes be called formless, but actually he is always in his eternal form, in his Vaikuntha planets, as well as in other planets of the universe, as different incarnations. The example of the sun is very appropriate in this connection. The sun in the night may not be visible to the eyes of men in the darkness, but the sun is visible wherever it has risen. And that the sun is not visible to the eyes of the inhabitants of a particular part of the earth does not mean that the sun has no form. In the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad 141, there is the hymn, Atmai Vedam Agar Asit Purusha Vidha. This mantra indicates that the Supreme Personality of God, Krishna, even before the appearance of the Purusha incarnation. In Bhagavad Gita 15:18 it is said that Lord Krishna is Purushottama because he is the Supreme Purusha, transcendental even to the Purusha Akshara and the Purusha Kshara. The Akshara Purush, or the Mahavishnu, throws his glance over Prakriti, or material nature, but the Purushottama existed even before that. Brihadaranyaka Upanishad therefore confirms the statement of the Bhagavad Gita that Lord Krishna is the Supreme Personality, Purushottama. So I will stop here. This is, we resume again, the last paragraph on page 542 of this volume. So there is very clear logic and progression of Srila Prabhupada's purport. We heard Srila Prabhupada, where we started to read, is affirming that the aham that is repeated here in the verse means the personality of Godhead. The impersonalists, they take this aham in their own special way, that there is a ultimate oneness of all selves. The present experience we are having of being individuals, that is Maya, and so when one achieves liberation, one merges into the total self, and this total self is impersonal, and it has no, as we go on in the purport we see that Srila Prabhupada is saying it has personality, and it has activities. Activities both, in the last paragraph we read, Srila Prabhupada is affirming that activities means not only the activities of the Purusha avatar, the Vyavahara Lila, of creation, maintenance, and destruction of this material manifestation, but also the Lord has his own transcendental activities in the spiritual world. And he gives this nice example of the king is understood, his authority is understood in his government, but we cannot expect to walk into any government office and meet the king there. That is the king's extended energy in the form of the government, and he's certainly the ruler over it. He's the authority, the ultimate authority there. But the king, we do not have to, we should not expect to see him present in any government office that we enter at any time. Because the king, he has his own personal castle or castles where he may likely be, as Prabhupada says, enjoying his royal comforts. So the same is true with the Lord. The Lord has his own dham, his own personal abode, and his pastimes there are confidential. Pastimes of creating, maintaining, and destroying the material manifestation. That is more apparent to us now. We can see his energies at work, yes, but still, we cannot see him directly, personally. That's because his position is confidential. So anyway, getting back to the logic of the purport, you see the impersonalists, they at least affirm that there is identity, there is self, there is something after one passes out of this temporary material existence. Whereas the Buddhists, their idea is that when one passes out of this temporary material existence, then there's nothing. In other words, the only reality but it is not a reality, is the material existence.
Ainoa totuus, joka ei ole totuus, on aineellinen olemus.
So Buddhistic philosophy is ultimately incomprehensible, and they admit it themselves.
Filosofia on käsittämätön.
That words cannot express it, mind cannot express it.
Mieli ei ole.
In personalism, the Mayavad attempt to explain the Vedic knowledge in the light of impersonalism is one step better than the Buddhist philosophy. Because at least the Mayavadis say there is something beyond this, something eternal beyond this temporary material manifestation. And referring to Chatusloki, they will agree, yes, it is aham, it is the sense of I. But they will not admit that that I is a person, the supreme personality of Godhead. And furthermore, they will not admit that this supreme personality of Godhead has his eternal abode and eternal pastimes. This is just inconceivable to the impersonalists too, because they are still strongly attached to the material nature. They have need of negating the material nature. They have need to resort to that, to negate the material nature out of attachment to it. Attachment and aversion or hatred, by which one tries to destroy something, negate something. They're two sides of the same coin. So, this again is one of the very chief differences between the Shuddha Vaishnava, the pure Vaishnava philosophy, and this Mayavadi philosophy. It has to do, and I've mentioned this already, it has to do with the Lord's energies and the Lord's relationship to his energies, and also of course we are included in the category of energy. We have relationship to the Lord's other energies. The Mayavadis, the impersonalists, this is their difficulty, or one of their difficulties, is dealing with the Lord's energy. They find this very troublesome. And the reason they find it troublesome is because they're not able to give up the sense of being the Lord themselves. They want to, that is their goal. They want to be the Lord. And this is the idea here. First of all, they reduce God down to being an impersonal oneness of self. So that type of God is easier for them to become than a supreme personality of God, who is the master of all energies. That's very difficult. So this beginning conception of God, which corresponds to Brahman, Paramatma, in Bhagavatam. So this Brahman conception of God, then actually their conception of Brahman is not real. It is also a perversion, because they don't know how to deal with energy, the Lord's energy. It's troublesome. So they want this Brahman that they want to become one with, to have no energy. And that's wrong. That is not according to the Vedic definition of Brahman. Actually, the word Brahman, the root, Brim, is indicative of the power of God. This power is referring to specifically at this Brahman stage. Then the power that is indicated in Brahman means the power of creation, maintenance, and destruction. So you see, this is actually the correct understanding of Brahman. It's that feature of God out of which the creation, maintenance, and destruction of the universe appears or is taking place. And that we see in the Brahma Samhita Yasyapradaka Vilajivinanda Kotim Koteshu Koteshu Vasudati Vibhuti Vedam Tad Brahma Nishkalam Ananta Vishesha Bhuttam Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Vachami. So that Brahma Nishkalam, Brahman is mentioned. Yasya Prabha. So Prabha means the Lord's effulgence. And out of this effulgence, this verse says, there are appearing the unlimited material universes. So they're appearing, they're being maintained in the rays of this Brahman, and they're also being annihilated in those rays. So that is Brahman. So even Brahman, according to the Vedic definition, has his energetic manifestation, but it is only material. Yes. So, in order to achieve the transcendental manifestation of energy, one has to go beyond the Brahman conception. Paramatma, but best of all, Bhagavan. So, anyway, the Mayavadis, because they're little jiva souls who can't give up attachment to the idea of being the Lord. So this puts that idea that I am Ishvara, I am the Lord, that immediately puts one in trouble with the Lord's energy. The Lord's energy is also personal. Ultimately, worshipping Sri Radha and Krishna. So Radharani is the Adya Shakti. Krishna is the Adi Purush. Adi Purush means the original person, original enjoyer, and Adya Shakti is the equivalent. Adya meaning Adi, Shakti, potency. So all potencies of the Lord, they ultimately are reposed in Srimati Radharani. And she is a person. And she loves Krishna. And she serves Krishna. So if some tiny little jiva pops up to say that I think I'm God, then Srimati Radharani is not very happy with that person. And so she has her extended energetic manifestations to deal with that little rascal. Like Prabhupada said, that Mahamaya is another face of Srimati Radharani. Also we find in the Shastra the statement that Durga is 1/1,000,000th part of 1/1,000,000th part of Srimati Radharani's total energy. And so for the little jiva, there's this, from Srimati Radharani's standpoint, there's a very insignificant aspect of herself, which encompasses the whole material existence. Durga. And Durga means prison. So these rascal jivas are placed in the prison of material energy, and they're punished there. So this is what happens. As soon as we're clinging to that idea that I am the Lord, we are in trouble with the Lord's energy. And that trouble, of course, is the initial sign of the trouble is agitation of the mind and senses. When one is dealing with the Lord's energy, one finds oneself in some distress. The mind and the senses are agitated. And then one is faced with a choice. Either I enjoy, I go from this conception of myself as being Lord, which is the reason for this agitation, and step forward further in illusion to the conception of being the enjoyer. And I satisfy, or try to satisfy, my agitated mind and senses, and sense gratification. Or what is the other option? Of course, absent of actually giving up the Ishvara mentality. What is the other option? The other option is the Mayavadi policy of suppressing or negating the energy of the Lord. then one says, yes, this is Maya.
Sanotaan, että tämä on Maya.
This energy of Krishna is Maya.
Krishnan energia.
And I renounce it.
Minä luovun siitä.
But as Prabhupada always would say, it is not yours to renounce.
Mutta Prabhupada sanoo, että et sinä voi sitä luopua.
See, this is the thing. This is the Mayavadis, they think that because they can make some show of renouncing, giving up, retiring somewhere, living very simply and whatever, avoiding. They think this is somehow a proof that they're God. So that's like that's like showing an empty hand and saying, see, I have money. Because God is the master of all bhagas. Bhagas means opulence. He is Bhagavan. So he's the master of all the opulences. So the Mayavadis try to prove themselves as God by withdrawing from the bhagas, from the opulences. You see? So this is contradictory. So anyway, but this agitation of mind and senses is the signal, just like one can have a burglar alarm in one's house, so that at night when you sleep, you can, if someone tries to enter, the alarm will ring and one knows. Yes, there is danger. I have to do something. I have to take action. Someone is entering the house to rob me. So this agitation, which we identify with Maya, but Maya's other name is mercy. So even this beginning of agitation that is a kind of mercy. It's a signal that our attitude towards the Lord's energy is not correct. And so, rather than taking this dualistic choice, not, in other words, not giving up the Ishvara contamination, but looking at these two choices, enjoy or renounce, bhoga, tyaga, and they're both sides of the same coin. That means either one you take, you're going to end up in the if one decides to enjoy, take the bhoga path, he'll become frustrated. And later on he'll think, oh, this is too much, I have to give it up. And then he goes to the tyaga side. And then one goes to the tyaga side of the meeting. I will be renouncing. You see, but that renunciation means always negating in the mind the thing to be enjoyed. And that means you're keeping that thing in your mind. Like this famous Russian author, Fyodor Dostoevsky. Somewhere he proposed, he's illustrating this, and he says, so what happens if I order you, do not think for the next 30 seconds of a blue-eyed polar bear, you know, the polar white bear. So he gives this graphic image of such that white bear that lives in the northern ice that has blue eyes, and he says, for the next 30 seconds, do not think of a blue-eyed polar bear. What will you do? You will immediately think of a blue-eyed polar bear. So this is the defect, you see. The Mayavadis, in trying to maintain the renunciation, they have to think of that which must be renounced. And that means they're attached to it. And by that association of the mind, even in the name of renunciation, then the lust will bleed through, you see. Just like when you're painting with watercolors, you may sometimes see where two colors coincide. Say you have blue here and red here, and the blue and the red are going to meet. And then if you're not very careful, then one color will bleed into the other. You want to have clear field here blue and clear field here red. But if one is not very, very careful to apply the paint and make sure that it's dry before going to the next color, then the colors will bleed together. You will have blue running into the red field and red running into
punaisen
feel
kentän, punainen
it
oli
was
siis
spoiled. The picture.
maalautuminen pilalla.
So in the same way, you see, this is again the Maya. They're not careful. Because this conception that I am Ishvara, this is the Tamil Guna. This is Lord Shiva's department. Lord Shiva is Ishvara. He has that name. He's not the Paramishvara, the supreme controller. That is, of course, Krishna. Ishvara Parama Krishna. He is the Paramishvara. But Lord Shiva, he is an expansion, a special expansion of Lord Krishna. Again, Brahma Samhita, Shram Didhi Vikara Vishesh Yoga Sanjayate Hita Tagvartagastiko. Yakshamutam Pita Tasomaitika Govindamani Purusham Tamaham Bhajami. There's a special kind of expansion. Like when we take yogurt from milk. So yogurt is an expansion of milk. But there is still a difference between yogurt and milk. There is a oneness in the sense that yogurt can have no other source than milk. Of course, nowadays they have this, what is it? This tofu. And they have tofu yogurt. But that, of course, that's not milk, but that's some bean curd thing. But some people say it tastes like yogurt, but I hate this stuff. Right? If someone gives me this tofu junk, I'm not fooled that this is milk. I remember I was staying with a family in Malaysia, and they were giving me this tofu milk. I would just take a little sip and go, that's horrible. No, Maharaj, this is just like milk. What are you talking about? It's terrible. So some people think there's no difference. But at least I can tell there's a difference. So real yogurt, it can have no other source than milk. So then there's a oneness. But there's also a difference because you can, once having the yogurt, you will not get milk back from it. You can get yogurt from milk, but you cannot get milk from yogurt. So there's a oneness and a difference. So that is a very nice explanation in Brahma Samhita of Shiva Tattva in relationship to Vishnu Tattva. And Shiva Tattva is above Jiva Tattva. Shiva Tattva is a special, unique Tattva. And he is Ishvara, he is directly the husband of the material energy, Durga, mind. That is his consort. So Lord Shiva, he has this special nature that he can live together on Mount Kailash with that woman who personifies the illusion, bewildering all of the energy. And yet he himself is not deluded, therefore he's the only one who can be her husband. No one else. Everyone else is trying in material. All the living entities want to be the husband of the Maya Devi. That's their attitude towards her. That I will enjoy you. And what happens is they just come under her potencies. Abhinatmika Shakti Pratyek Atmika Shakti. Two potencies. Prabhupada explains that. First of all, she dislodges them, pulls them out of their spiritual position. You see, in other words, she bewilders them. They are thinking they're not spiritual anymore, they're material. And the second covering that she throws over them is that they become helpless in that situation. So once they're identifying that I am matter, not spirit, that means they're going to suffer, obviously. But she renders them helpless, so they don't want to do anything about the suffering. You see? So they go on, birth after birth after birth. Birth, death, disease, old age, birth, death, still seemingly content. All right. This is all there is. Can't expect any more. Just give me some sense gratification. It's a very tragic. This is the fallen state. So this is what Maya Devi does to all of these
Ja näin
lesser souls, jiva souls, who would attempt to
kohtelee
enjoy
kaikkia
it.
näitä alempia
So anyway, Shiva is the Ishvara,
Mutta Shiva on
the
Ishvara.
controller of material nature, and this conception
Aineisella on
of
hallinnassa.
being the controller of material nature is the Tamo Guna. Now, Lord Shiva is Tamo Guna avatar. Like I said, he's in that special position.
Herra Shiva on tamagunnan avatar.
It's sort of like
Hän on
the
erityinen
pure Tamo Guna, so to speak.
puhdasta tamagunnaa.
Pure, concentrated, essential Tamo Guna is Lord Shiva himself. And there is a transcendental purpose, a transcendental aim to the existence of each of the three modes of nature. Like Srila Prabhupada says in his Gita purport, the actual purpose of this material world is to give an opportunity for the living entities to go back home, back to Godhead. And so the material world is consisting of three modes. And each of these three modes, its purpose is to push the living entities in the direction back home, back to Godhead. So this Ishvara conception, this is of the Tamo Guna, it's of ignorance. So when the Jiva adopts this attitude that I am the Ishvara, I am the controller, that means he's in ignorance. That means he's dull. So this is the Mayavadi's situation. Because they cling to this Ishvara conception. They're less intelligent. And because they're less intelligent, then they can use these words like clumsy, blundering, primitive. This is their relationship with the material energy. They're clumsy, they're blundering, they're not sure how to deal with it. And the Ishvara conception is there. They want to be Lord, but when they're confronted with the material energy, they're hesitant what to do. And if they've tried, to handle the material energy, they blunder with it, they make mistakes. This is ignorance, not knowing how to deal with Krishna's energy. It's ignorance. So you see, then the ignorant, where does the ignorance come from? It comes from this Ishvara conception, which is Lord Shiva. Lord Shiva is the personification of the Ishvara conception. So these Mayavadis are all under the influence of Lord Shiva. And Lord Shiva is simultaneously the Lord of annihilation. And that's what the Mayavadis are seeking. This is their recourse. This is their answer to what to do with the energy. Just negate it, there should be nothing. We just withdraw safely into this sort of unmanifest state, Vyakta state. It's still the material energy, but she has her Vyakta feature. And there, you see, that's where the Mayavadis want to be. Because that's safe for them. They can be Ishvara, they can share this Ishvara conception, but the material nature is there inert. Vyakta means unmanifest. So material nature is just inert. She's not doing anything. So then the Mayavadi can think, I'm God. And there's no material nature active to prove to everyone that they're not God, they're dog. So this is their great hope. This is why they worship Lord Shiva. Shankaracharya, of course, he's an avatar of Lord Shiva. All Shankara Mayavadis after him. They wear the three-line tilak. By their philosophy, they're not supposed to be devotees of any deity, ultimately, because the name, the form, the person of the deity is illusion. But although that's their philosophy, three lines on the forehead. So they're devotees of Lord Shiva. Because Shiva has what they want. This is what they want. They want to enjoy the Ishvara conception, not be troubled by Maya,
ilman, että Maija
So Maya is Lord Shiva, under Lord Shiva's direct control.
Maija on Herra Shivan suorassa.
He's the Lord of destruction.
Hän on tuhoamisen herra.
Existing in this objective feature of material nature.
Hän on olemassa
And
tässä.
that's where they want to
Aina
go.
sillä on avjakta.
But this is again what? Ignorance.
Mutta mitä tämä on? Tämä on tietämättä.
Ignorance. Now this is very important. These
Tämä on hyvin
4 verses of the chapter Shloki are
Tämä Chaturshlokin 4 sääntö.
smashing the impersonal conception as we see from Srila Prabhupada's explanation.
Kuten näemme tässä Srila Prabhupadan selityksessä.
And these 4 verses are affirming that the Lord is a person and the Lord has his energies,
Hänellä on energiansa.
and that the way to be situated in the Lord's association
Ja tapa olla Herran seurassa.
peacefully, in peaceful harmony with the Lord's energies, the only way to do that is by bhakti,
Ainoa tapa siihen bhakti.
surrendering to the Lord in pure
Antaa
devotion.
Herralle puhtaan antamuksen.
So, this is, you see, rejecting this Mayavadi conception entirely. So we need to understand this through and through,
Meidän on ymmärrettävä
theoretically,
eripohjaisesti.
jnana and vijnana in practice. As long as we are not clear about this,
Jos emme ole
you see, because of what is our background?
mikä on meidän tausta?
We have long been trying to be Ishvara, trying to be Bhogi, enjoyer. You long had this unhealthy relationship with the Lord's energies. That is our disease. So unless we understand this very clearly, we will continue to suffer from the disease, even while we're apparently situated in spiritual life. That's the position of Mayavadis. They're apparently situated in spiritual life. If you go to holy places, I had this experience myself in India, in Rameshwaram. I visited Rameshwaram. And Rameshwaram is a place where, in the town of Rameshwaram, there are broad roads because they also have a Rath Yatra festival there, not a Jagannath Rath Yatra, but their own deities. But so this broad square-shaped street in the center of Rameshwaram, you can see a long distance when you're on this street. It's very broad and long, suitable for Rath Yatra festival for a whole lot of people. And generally, at least when I went there, there's only certain days when there's very great many people. Because it's a rather isolated part. It's on an island actually. It's not directly connected to the Indian mainland, so it takes a little trouble to get there. So generally, there's not a lot of people on that street, so you can see for a long distance. And so I went there with a couple godbrothers, and I remember several times, we were walking around Rameshwaram. I would see in the distance a person with shaved head and sannyasi cloth. And I was thinking, maybe this is ISKCON sannyasi. You'd see from a long distance, and then when you get closer, 3 lines on the forehead and ekadanta instead of tridanta. So, Mayavadi. So I like it with my illustration that the Mayavadis are also apparently situated in spiritual life. They have dress, spiritual dress, and have their vows, and they're strict, but they're still in trouble with the Lord's energy because they're still in ignorance. Ignorance of what these Chaturshloki, what the entire Srimad Bhagavatam, especially condensed Bhagavatam, these 4 nutshell verses. Ignorance of that message of Godhead. The absolute truth is a person, supreme person, and he has his energy. And the proper relationship with the supreme person and his energy is that of bhakti. To surrender to the Lord pure devotion.
Herralle puhtaan antaumuksen.
Then the Lord's energy will deal with us
Sitten
nicely.
Herran energia
That Maya becomes Yoga Maya.
hyvin. Majasta tulee
Or
Yoga.
actually that Maya really is Yoga Maya. Always.
Todellisuudessa tuo Maja on aina Yoga Maja.
This is another interesting point that I'll conclude the lecture.
Tämäkin on mielenkiintoinen.
I was at Brigham Muni's Prabhu's apartment yesterday taking lunch,
Olin eilen
talking different things.
Rikumunin asunnossa.
So this Bhagavatam, there's some persons, again Mayavadi type or academic type
Majavainen
kind of brains, they think that the Bhagavatam is a synthesis
Bhagavatam
of the different Vedic viewpoints.
yhdistää eri veediset.
They think, and they're not entirely wrong,
Ja jotka hävettäisi
in
vähän.
the sense that the Bhagavatam,
Siinä mielessä Bhagavatam,
being Vyasadeva's own commentary on Vedanta, not just a conclusion of all the Vedic knowledge. So Srimad Bhagavatam is the commentary on
mikä on
it.
kaiken vedet.
So Srimad Bhagavatam is an overview of
Srimad Bhagavatam on
all Vedic knowledge, of course, from the standpoint of Krishna consciousness.
kaikista vedetiedosta. Krishna
So in the Bhagavatam, you have the
Joten
pure
Bhagavatam on
Sankhya philosophy,
puhdas sankhya-filosofia.
not the atheistic Sankhya philosophy.
Ei
You have the
ateistinen
pure
sankhya.
Sankhya philosophy. You have the pure yoga. You have all the
Puhdas jooga.
everything that's there in the Vedas, but in pure form.
Kaikki mikä on vedossa.
In Krishna conscious form.
Mutta puhtaassa Krishna
But this is not what the Mayavadis who read Bhagavatam or the academicians, this is not what they mean.
Mutta tätä
They're speaking more
vähän puhumme.
in a sense of that the Bhagavatam is like an assembly, a construction
Siinä mielessä Bhagavatam
of different points of view that are actually incompatible.
jotka eivät sovi toisiinsa.
You know, because of their ignorance, they see contradictions.
Ja tämän
This goes along with their not being able to deal with the energies of the Lord. This means disharmony. So when they look at this philosophy, they see disharmony. They say, but here it says this, and there it says that, and over here it says a third thing.
Tuolla sanotaan noin.
How do you put it all together?
Kuinka nämä kaikki asiat voidaan yhdistää?
That's always their big problem. And then they try by
Heidän
speculation
suuri ongelmansa.
to put things together, give their own interpretation, to try to harmonize everything. So that's what they think the Srimad Bhagavatam is.
Tätähän
You know, that it's a construction of different points of view.
Se yhdistää eri näkökulmia.
So one of the reasons why they say that in the Bhagavatam there is also the Advaita philosophy. There is the Vaishnava devotion, but there is also the impersonal too. You see, here I've just been telling you that the two. This is my point. These two do not go together. It's either one or the other. And I was telling you that the Chakra Sloka is refuting the Advaita or impersonal. Of course, then again, there is Shuddha Advaita. There is a right way of being an Advaitist. It doesn't contradict with Vaishnavism. That Eka Brahma Dvitiya Nati. This is a Vedic statement. Eka Brahma means there is one absolute truth. Dvitiya Nasti. There is not a second absolute truth. So this is the real Advaita position. And God is one. Can't argue with that. Only one God. There's not two gods. Only one God. Advaita. God is not dual. So there's no argument there. But of course they have their special everything is one philosophy. God without energies. God without expansions. And impersonal, all-pervading oneness, that is God. That is false. So anyway, I'm telling you that there's no compromise in the Bhagavatam. So this Mayavadi philosophy. Call it Mayavadi philosophy. It's not even the real Advaita philosophy. And so anyway, one reason that they give why in Bhagavatam there is also the Advaita philosophy. Is that you find in the Bhagavatam, you can find this all through the Bhagavatam, verses which state that the material energy is not real, or that the mind, I was yesterday just looking at a verse which was warning about the mind, that one should not allow the mind to take control, because the mind will ruin everything. Mind, if one is attempting to make progress, spiritual progress, if we do not control the mind, then the mind will ruin us, ruin our every step of progress we have made. And then this verse talking about the mind says, Prabhupada's translation, even though the mind is not real, still it is very powerful. So this is the example. The Mayavadis, this is what they mean by it's synthetic philosophy. On the one side it says the mind is not real. On the other side it says it is very powerful. These two do not go together. So you can have something that's not real and at the same time very powerful. And this is why they say that the Bhagavatam is a construction of different incompatible points of view. But it's not true. And so we need to understand why the Bhagavatam says this. Why the Bhagavatam says the mind or the material energy is not real and yet at the same time very powerful. The answer is very simple. And it's very actually crystal clear from the Bhagavatam itself. But when one is tinged with ignorance, then one overlooks the simple answer. The Bhagavatam, from page 1 till the last page, is describing the Leela of Krishna. That is Prabhupada. When he translates this name, Srimad Bhagavatam, he translates it as what? As the beautiful story of the personality of God. So this beautiful story is the narrative of Krishna's Leela. And of course he has, as we said, he has his Leela of creation, and he has his own transcendental personal Leela in the spiritual world. But everything, all of that is Leela. Nitya Leela or Shrishti Sthiti Pralaya Leela. Eternal Leela or Leela of creation, maintenance, and destruction. But it is Leela. So what does the word Leela mean? Now, typically in ISKCON we always say pastime, and that's a very nice translation Prabhupada has given us. But the one thing that I think that we may miss as devotees when we only consider pastime, meaning pastime simply means a way of passing the time. It's something you do. So this is something Krishna is doing. Very nice. Excellent translation. But also Leela has the sense, along with pastime, of play. God is playing. And this is Krishna. Krishna, he's playing. He's a coward boy, so he plays. Krishna plays with his energy, and that word is also used very much in Srila Prabhupada's purports, in translations and purports. He does use this word play, that Krishna is playing with his energies. So we should not forget that. So play, in turn, play also refers to a drama, a theater. And in a theater, in a play, in a dramatic play, there are actors. Krishna in this Bhagavatam is called Natyadar. That's one of his names. Natyadar means the great actor. And similarly, his energies are actors. They're acting in the Lord's play. So an actor is a real person. Understand that. But the actor's role may not be real. And this is the skill of an actor. You see, an actor, a very good actor, like a very good male actor, and there's been some films like that, can dress up like a woman, and walk and talk and act, and when you see him, you think this is a woman, but it's a man. And also vice versa. A very skillful female actor can dress up like a man, and you think she's a man. But it's not real that this is a man. It's a woman, and this is not a real woman, this is a man. As an actor, their real personality, they're completely different from the role that they're playing. So when Bhagavatam says the material energy is not real but very powerful, that is the way to understand it. That the material energy is really the spiritual energy dressed up to look like material. That is Goddess Kali, for example. We see Goddess Kali with her 10 arms. She's all black. She has 3 eyes. She has this long blood-red tongue and big teeth. Head, a garland of heads around her neck. She's got a little mini skirt made of severed arms. Let's wait till the day when women start to dress like that. Dangling severed arms, that's your little mini skirt. So, this is called Gora Rupa. This is a very horrible form. But who is that? That's actually Srimati Radharani. In ultimate truth, that is Radharani, but this is a role that she's playing, and that role is not real. But it's Radharani, so she is very powerful. But in that form, she is not real. And that's how we have to understand these sort of references in the Bhagavatam. The Mayavadis can't get it because, and the scholars do, because they're not devotees. Not devotee means they're not personalists. They do not actually accept the personality of Godhead. They do not accept that the Lord's energies are personal. So therefore they're just left with these empty categories. They're empty, different philosophic. They don't know that, they have no vijnana, what it really means. They're just looking at words, words and ideas and trying to connect them in an intellectual way. And without realization, and that is their ignorance. You see? So they're less intelligent, they cannot understand this philosophy. Alright, so it's 9 o'clock. Let me stop here. Would there be any question? Yes?
As you mentioned that the Mayavadis, they have troubles with material energy because they don't accept the Supreme Personality of Godhead. It seems like the devotees also have problems, although they accept the Supreme Personality of Godhead, they also have problems with material energy.
Yeah, well, why do you think Srila Prabhupada is so much, and this is always the thing that I reflected on when I was a new devotee. We talked with other devotees, other in the beginning of my Krishna consciousness. Read Prabhupada's books, and again and again Prabhupada is smashing the Mayavadis. And we were like wondering, well, but where are these? I mean, Mayavadis, these are some sect of Hindus in India. But here we are in America. What does this have to do with us? I mean, okay, it's good to know that there are Mayavadis, and we should be careful if we meet them, but we're over here, and this is not Shankaracharya didn't come to New York. Okay, there are a few Mayavadi organizations, but they're not very influential. But the fact is that Mayavadi philosophy is the ground philosophy of material existence. So anyone who's in this material world is a Mayavadi. You have to be here. Anyone who's come here, taken birth, caught in the cycle of samsara, is someone who has negated the personality of Godhead and declared himself to be God, has given up service to the Lord, has given up the service attitude entirely, doesn't want to be a servant, wants to be Lord. This is how we come here. That means that contamination is the foundation of all other contaminations. So the reason devotees are having trouble, as you described, is because the heart is not pure. The heart is not pure, and so long as that Mayavadi foundation is still there. This is what I'm saying. I've mentioned this in the lecture. This agitation is there because of this Ishvara conception. Mayam Ishvara. And that is ignorance. So we have to, you see, Prabhupada is educating us what that ignorance really is. This is Mayavadi philosophy. So Prabhupada is putting so much in his books about Mayavadis because we are the Mayavadis. But, those who are conscious movement are trying
Mutta ne,
to
jotka ovat tulleet Krishna-tietoisuus, niin
give up
yrittävät luopua.
being Mayavadis and trying to be Vaishnavas.
Yrittää olla Vaishnava.
But again, the warning signal,
Mutta jälleen kerran,
if this agitation remains in the mind and senses, it means the Mayavadi contamination is still there.
se tarkoittaa, että yhä Mayavadin vaikutukset on.
And therefore we have to be humble. You see, that is also wonderful. That is the antidote. Humility is the antidote to the Mayavadi philosophy, which is the essence of Mayavadi philosophy is being puffed up. Ahankara, again referring back to Lord Shiva. He's the ruler of the ahankara, the false ego. This is the essence. The Mayavadi philosophy is actually a philosophical form of the false ego. So the counteracting drug or medicine for that false ego is humility. Kirtaniya Sadahari, what Chaitanya says. You can be forever situated in some kirtan if Janadapi Sanichana Torodi Vasesha. That verse, which Srila probably said we should wear, Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati, we should wear that verse as a necklace, always. This is essential. Otherwise, Kirtaniya Sarahari means to be actually established in the Vaishnava religion, Vaishnava practice, which is ultimately Sankirtan. Sada means always, so that means to be established there, to be actually, you can use the word installed, like, you see, installing a deity means now the Lord is there, and we should expect Him to always be there, and therefore we have to always serve Him. So also the devotee becomes installed in devotional service. And that means the devotee is always there in Krishna consciousness. Kirtaniya Sarahari. And so this requires absolute humility. So that's what we have to work on. If we get in that signal, the red flashing light, agitation. And then, that's like the fire alarm. So then what is the fire extinguisher? The red canister on the wall. The label is humility. When the fire starts to burn, you reach for the fire extinguisher of humility, and that will put out the fire. Anything else? Yes?
Maharaj, this word Purusha means that Krishna is a person, but why is it that this Purusha has the other translation, that the enjoyer? So what is the connection between being the enjoyer and being the person?
Yeah. Well, Purusha has different senses. Another sense of Purusha is one who dwells within the universe, one who dwells within a body even. Pur means city. Like the city, the universe can be compared to a great city, or the body is the city of 9 days. Pur Usha. So the one who is within the city, that's also a sense of a way of understanding Purusha. So all of these apply to Krishna. Krishna is a supreme person, because who lives in a city? Persons. And Krishna has his own transcendental abode. But he also enters into the material cities, so to speak, material universes. He's in the heart of every living entity. And Krishna is the enjoyer. If you want to know what that means, then think of the term Atmarama. The transcendental enjoyer. You see, he enjoys his own Atma Shakti. His own personal, spiritual energy that he's enjoying. Therefore, he is Atmarama, self-satisfied. So the material sense of Purusha is just that one is not satisfied within oneself. One is trying to enjoy
vaan
the external material energy.
nauttii ulkoisesta aineellisesta energiasta.
So he's not Atmarama,
Hän ei
and
ole
therefore he becomes a Purusha in the material, mundane sense.
Siksi hänestä tulee Purusha aineellisessa.
But he's not really Purusha,
Mutta hän ei ole todellinen Purusha.
because one cannot actually enjoy the material. That's
Tästä
the
aineellisesta
illusion.
energiasta ei voida nauttia. Ja tämä on se harha.
Okay. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Jai.